I am thrilled to get to welcome to the show Sean from Peninsula Taproom, one of my favorite local businesses. Sean, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, James. I appreciate it, man.
So obviously we are not able to enjoy a beer together in person, which I usually appreciate, but you have been able to stay open. Can you talk to me about the last, I guess it's probably been a month now for you at the Taproom?
I think we're going into week 7. You have to check my math, but yeah, it's been an interesting but quick adjustment. I mean, we've always had the ability to sell to go with bottles, cans, and growlers, but it was never really our emphasis. A lot of reasons behind that, but my business philosophy is, and the model for this taproom is to have on-premise sales, meaning we want people to be in the taproom, come in and have a drink or two, and hang out and interact with people, meet some new friends, say hi to your bartender and whatnot. So the whole to-go thing was never my focus, because it doesn't allow people to come in and do what I want them to be able to do. Now, everyone has their what kind of experience they want to have programmed in. And some people have always only ever been to go, but it's so less personal. You know, if I wanted to have a to go model, then we would have, cheap growler fills, and we would sell our beer at a much lower price. But that's not the experience I was trying to set up with the taproom. Now, that said, thankfully we have that option, because in this pandemic, it's the only option we have.
Right.
And I'm so blessed and thankful that's in place, because without it, we wouldn't have our doors open. So what we've been able to do very carefully and safely and cleanly is to offer bottles, cans, and growlers to go. And we've decided to stay open 7 days a week, because one of the other main philosophies I have is consistency.
Right.
And we want our prices to stay consistent. We want the bartenders to stay consistent. We want the hours of operation to stay consistent. But it doesn't make sense to be open more than 4 hours a day with this particular model that we've had to adopt.
Right.
So it's been surprisingly steady, and I say that because I had no idea what was going to happen. But we have a great core. Squim has been so welcoming from day one, you included. Just this core group of people that recognize that this is something they want to see here, like a coffee shop or a place where people can just naturally meet and hang out. And so that.
Let me jump in, because you mentioned something. You said consistency, and some of those things are true, but part of your business model is about lack of consistency when it comes to what's on tap.
You're going to call me out.
No, I love it. It's because it's like, it almost creates this like fear of missing out. Like, what's he going to have? Because he's only going to have one barrel. Can you talk about how you came to Squim, your background, how you decided to do this route? Because it's way different than most places.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll try to keep, if I get off track, stop me.
I'll rein you in.
Born and raised in Olympia, just down the peninsula. Went to Washington State, go Cougs. After I graduated, I thought I was going to be a high school English teacher. So I moved to Colorado to pursue some higher education. Thought I was going to be a coach and a basketball coach and a high school teacher. But while I was doing that, got involved in the bicycle industry. Started working at a bike shop to pay some of the bills while I was going to college, and realized this was back in the late 80s, early 90s, that there was actually a career to be had in the bicycle industry. I started managing the bike shop. I had a salary. I had benefits, 401k, and I was thinking, man, I can make more money and have more fun doing this than I can being a teacher. And so I got deep into the bike industry, so much so that after several years of managing shops, this will come full circle, don't worry. I ended up opening and running my own bicycle mountain bike shop in Southeast Utah in a small town called Moab. I did that for over almost 11 years, and then I sold it and got out of the bicycle industry. Was feeling the need to get back up to the Northwest. My brothers were all having kids. My parents were, getting to the point where they were retiring. And I just wanted to be closer to family. So I ended up back in Portland, Oregon, or not back in Portland, Oregon. I ended up in Portland, Oregon, getting closer to Olympia and Washington, and realized I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And so I started thinking about the bike industry experience, the things I'd learned and the people I'd met and the things that were common to the bicycles outside of just bikes. And one of those things is craft beer. And so living in Portland, it's one of the meccas of craft beer. I decided to tap into an old contact from the bicycle industry that knew someone that worked in the craft beer industry. And long story longer, I got connected with a brewery by the name of Lagunitas, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yep.
And a lot of people are. It's one of the more recognized craft beer brands. And had an amazing opportunity, was fast-tracked working for them. I started at the ground level, and before I knew it, I was managing their specialty beer program for the Northwest. And I learned the craft beer trade. I learned how the industry works. I learned what distribution means. I learned how the retail end, which is what I do now, how that works, and how it all comes together with the brewery. It's a three-tier system. There's a brewery, a distributor, and then a retailer, which is in my case the Taproom, but it could also be a grocery store, any place where somebody can go in and buy an adult beverage. So I spent almost 6 years working for Lagunitas, learned more than I can share in this interview, was mentored by some amazing people that have been in the industry for a very long time, and realized simultaneously that while I loved working in craft beer, I was tired of the hustle and bustle of Portland and the big city. And I was spending too much of my time in the car, on the road, in an airplane, traveling back and forth between Seattle and California and Oregon. And I was like, you know what, man? I love this industry, but this isn't what I want. I need to slow it down. And ended up in Sequim because I came to my cousin's wedding in Port Townsend in October, 3 years ago. And after the wedding, came to Sequim just because I had a half a day to kill before I headed back to Portland. And I got to town, and it was a Sunday, and it was a beautiful day. And I said, I want to find a beer and a burger and a pizza or something, just hang out and see what this town's about. I hadn't spent any time here as a kid, and I was just enamored with it immediately. And so I started Googling, brewery, tap room, craft beer, and what I got for results.
Yes.
It told me to go to Port Townsend, where I'd already been, or to Port Angeles, where I didn't want to go. And it was a Sunday, so most places were closed. And there was I found no purely dedicated craft beer bar, as I like to call it. And so a light went off, or a switch went off, and the light went off in my head. And I said, I had to drive back to Portland that day. And the whole time I was thinking, if this is real, and there really isn't something in this town, I need to get up here and do this, because I was used to being in every town in the Northwest has some type of tap room or beer bar or brewery or something. It's just a meeting spot for most people in most small towns, for most towns. And the whole way home to Portland, I was thinking, man, it must be a dry county. Clallam County must not allow alcohol, because there's no logical reason for there not to be a brewery or a tap room here. And so I through my industry connections, I contacted some folks that I knew worked for a distributor up here, and I reached out and I said, hey, what's up? And they're like, I have no idea, man. I like to ride bikes and be outside and camp and fish, and I love drinking beer, and we don't have a spot and I'm not trying to step on any toes. We don't have a spot that is purely dedicated to craft beer and nothing else, right?
Right. There is still to this day no brewery that you can go and taste their own homebrewed beer. Right. And there's nowhere there's lots of bars and grills, but there's nowhere that is a beer house, tap house, brewery. I mean, Silver City down in Bremerton, as you mentioned, Port Townsend and Bar Hop. There's lots of places, just not in, the 15 miles around us.
Correct. And so I said, well, I don't want to do the brewery thing, because that wasn't my area of expertise. But I do know how the beer industry works. I have a passion for craft beer, and by the way, I ran a small business for a long time, and so I knew that I had a skill set that I hadn't used in a while. But it's all the same, man. Whether it's bicycles, burgers, insurance, beer, the principles of running small business, in my opinion, are very much the same across the board. And so I said, hey, man, here's your opportunity. Get out of the hustle and bustle of the big city, which you don't like. Get up to Washington where you want to be. Get to a small town and cross your fingers and roll the dice, and you only live once. And I sold my house. It took me a long time. I wanted to buy a house here to be part of the community immediately. I wasn't here for the short term. This is where I'm going to be for the rest of it. So I sold the house in Oregon, bought a house here, and just serendipitously ran into Ron, the building owner here, and it happened. And from day one, my only regret is not having moved here 25 years ago. And I'm not a man of regrets. I'm just saying I was, from the very day we opened, this community has taken their big arms like this and just wrapped them around the tap room and given me every ounce of support that I could ever have asked for and more. And it completely blew my expectations out of the water, and just been so warmly received here. It's just truly a heartfelt thing, man. And it's been, and coming full circle now, to have the community support me and the tap room through this challenge. People have reached out and said, hey, if you need help, we want this business to stay here. Reach out to me, talk to me privately. Let's make this thing happen if you need it. And thankfully, the support we've had has kept us afloat. And while it's not the business model I came into this with, we have to be adaptable, just like anybody else. And that's another one of my key business principles is flexibility and adaptability, especially in a small town. You have to listen to what people are saying, find out what they need, and go from there. I think I got off track though. Your question was, wasn't it about rotating taps?
I don't know. I could listen to you talk about beer and your adventure all day long. I don't even remember what the damn question was.
I think you said something about you're all about consistency. How do you explain the fact that you change everything?
Look at you. You got a great memory. Way to go. You know, it's nice to hear. I think that so many of us support local businesses. As you know, I came from Ballard, where when I moved to Sequim was right when the craft brew was really becoming Ballard's kind of staple. And you always carry some sort of Rubens. And whenever you post a picture, I'm going to be like first one in there supporting my old hometown. But I mean, I think it is just such a great story for you to say how it's been built. I think so many people come in, they see you, they say hi, you recognize them, but like they don't know your story. Like you haven't taken this time to share your life's journey of how you got here. And I think it's really cool for people to get to hear, they enjoy your place, they enjoy you, but to get to hear this background, I think is really awesome.
Yeah. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a getting off track, but it's taken me a lifetime to get here, like everybody else doing anything. And it just, like I said, I can't emphasize it enough. The minute I landed here was the minute I realized, man, this is the place you need to be.
So I have a couple of questions because I'd like to start firing at you a little bit.
Yep. Do it.
I know your business model, but I would love to ask you why you resist cooking food in your establishment.
Two reasons. Well, not two. A couple reasons. One is I'm a huge fan of and believe very strongly in the notion that it's a cliche, but we're only as good as the community, right? We're only as good as the other small businesses around us, in my case. And so my model is I'm not an expert in food. I don't want to learn how to be an expert in food. I know beer and small business. And I think for the 30 days or so it took me to build the tap room, I was at Jose's every single day for lunch. I go to lots of different restaurants in town on a regular basis. And my belief is get involved with your community by supporting other small businesses, in this case, businesses that have food. And that's why we allow people to bring in food from other restaurants in town. That's why we have a pass-through window into the neighbor's kitchen. But I don't want to do the food because there's plenty of other places in town that do awesome food.
Yep.
And the pie is only so big in this town, you know, in a small town. And what's the point in taking away from something where there's already awesome choices? Just
for you to try to learn it too. It's kind of like, you know, I'll just stick in my lane, and you know, you mentioned it, but it's so cool because Salty Girls next door, you can literally order and they will pass it right through over your bar.
Correct. And people,
and then you got Tedesco's next door. You've got all these places that you can either within walking distance or will deliver to you and bring it in. You know, order your fresh pint of beer. So if you want the best beer in town, but someone else's food, you can go and get it.
And that's the core of it right there. It's like, it's not that I could hire people and do the food thing, and I've got a couple good customers that are very skilled culinary people, but that's not what I want to do. There's already enough of that in this town, in my opinion. I mean, it doesn't mean we can't have somebody else come into town and have it be awesome, but I just, there's only so many slices of pie, you know, and why take away from it? And as a result, I think other businesses, other restaurants in town recognize that. And that was, you know, I was very sensitive coming into a small town. I didn't want to, you know, like be elbowing people for a slot. I was specifically came in with a plan that wouldn't step on anybody's toes, in the sense that, you know, Jose's has their food, they're Mexican, and their beer and whatnot, but I'm not taking any business from them. It's a different thing. We have the same clients.
So I got to ask you then, all those lunches at Jose's, what's your favorite food item on Jose's? Because I interviewed Angie last week. So what's your favorite food item at Jose's? What's your go-to?
I have been a pretty regular veggie cheese enchilada with jalapenos and lettuce and cotija cheese, that white cheese on top. Veggie cheese enchiladas with jalapenos, go-to every time. Once a week. Well, this time of year it's a little less, but generally it's once a week. To Jose's for lunch.
Yeah, I will say, when I was talking to Angie, I'm bummed because when we were doing spring sports, it was such a great time for us after practices or after the games on Saturdays to run to Jose's, and it's so, you know, we will get back to that, but it's just kind of disappointing. So one other thing I'm interested to know, this has been a very introspective time for myself. I'm spending a lot of time at home. I think everyone else is doing the same thing. What's one thing you've kind of found out about yourself, whether it's what you like to eat, how late you like to sleep? Like, now that kind of you're in control of like this little bubble, what's one thing about you that you have found out?
Well, I'm a man of routine. I'm a simple man of routine, but everything has its limitations, man. I'm actually getting bored. I mean, I live at home alone by choice. I don't have any pets. Because when you work in an environment like this, you get an inordinate amount of stimulation. And so when you're ready to turn it off, when I'm ready to turn it off, I'm not speaking for anybody else. When I'm ready to turn it off, I like to go home, chill out. I'll sit there in a quiet room and have a beer and listen to some music, and that's all I need. But I'm getting too much of that. I mean, I'm staying balanced. I ride my bicycle, which is one of my other passions, more than I ever have since living here. My yard, like everyone's saying the same thing, their yards and their gardens are, you know, immaculate. So I've done a ton of work like that makes me feel really good. But everything has its limits. I'm getting bored with my routine, and I'm a man of routine. So I didn't think I would ever say that. So that's what I've learned is I didn't think I could get bored with routine. And
I hear you on that, because, you know, in my business as well, you're talking to people all day. And so I always say on weekends, like, I love staying home on my property, not leaving. Like, it's great. But after 6-7 weeks now, I'm like, okay, like I had to go deposit something at the bank, and like the whole family's like, yeah, we want to come. Like, it's like the smallest things.
I'm finding myself somebody, and this has probably happened a little bit in this interview, but just having people come in, they'll ask me a simple yes or no question, and I'll find myself like 5 minutes later still talking to them, and I'm like,
you need like a sign that says "Do not loiter."
I gotta let this guy or gal go, because they didn't ask me for my life story. They just asked me if I had any more of this particular beer they wanted. So I've learned that about myself for sure.
I greatly appreciate this. For those of you who have not been to the Taproom, I don't know where you're living, but they have the best selection. As Sean knows, I have a young family, so oftentimes it is grab and go. Sarah and I will go there for dates quite frequently, but if you're looking for any beer, they have it. They can get it. You talk to Sean. I mean, it is one of these things that this one in particular, I think just came in maybe 2 days ago.
Correct.
And this is a really cool beer that was done by Rubens, and it's about supporting the service industry. I don't know if it's in just Seattle area or
Seattle area. Yeah. It's more specifically about supporting people in the service industry that are struggling with addiction. There's a program set up to help them, especially in this challenge, more than normal challenging time.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I can just say one thing to that whole thing is that our goal with having beer in the cooler is we're trying to have stuff that isn't necessarily available in your grocery stores, just to give people a point of difference, a reason to come in. And 95% of the things in that case you can't or won't find at the grocery store. And there's nothing that's not a good, bad, or indifferent. It's just a point of difference.
Absolutely.
And I think that's important, especially important right now is giving people the choice to have something different because we're all getting used to the same thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. And as you know, I'm in there probably too regularly enough that you know which beers I'm going to probably go grab. But, you know, I would say go check it out because the variety is awesome. And, you know, as you mentioned, if we want small local businesses to be here for perpetuity, we got to make sure we're doing those things to go out there and support them.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, thank you. I know that this is right about opening time for you. And as you can see, middle of happy hour now for me. So if I could be, I'd be down there to enjoy one with you. But thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, James. Have a great day, buddy.
Pretty painless for you, right?
Very painless. Yeah, super easy. Thanks for the opportunity to chat with somebody.
All right, guys, go check out the Tap Room and make sure to give Sean your business. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, man.
All right, later.